Look closely. You are here because something in your financial life is not working. There is a discomfort, a repetition of patterns, a feeling of always chasing and never reaching real stability. And there is no point in masking this with ready-made phrases about positive thinking or generic prosperity formulas. What is being presented here is not a superficial chat about a simplified law of attraction, nor empty almanac-style motivation. It is a specific, structured mechanism based on the idea of quantum physics applied to the functioning of your double. And if you arrived here out of passing curiosity, that's fine. But if you came seriously, then there is an implicit commitment. The activation password is not a formality, not advanced gratitude. It is a contract of execution for 3 consecutive nights. Without execution, nothing changes. Without disciplined repetition, there is no calibration. Without commitment, there is no transformation. Everything begins with the deconstruction of what you have been taught your entire life about time. Society taught you that time is linear. The past is behind you, the present is now, the future does not yet exist. You grow up hearing that you wasted opportunities, that it's already too late to change, that you missed the right moment. Calendars, birthdays, deadlines, chronological age. Everything reinforces the idea that you are stuck at a fixed point on an irreversible straight line. The past does not return. The future depends exclusively on what you do from now on. And within this narrative, you look back with regret and forward with anxiety. This cultural construction creates a constant feeling of being late or insufficient. You are always owing something to time. But this linear view is presented as a convenient simplification that imprisons. Modern interpretations of physics suggest that past, present, and future coexist, not as a poetic metaphor, but as a structure of reality in which all moments exist simultaneously in an infinite information field. Imagine a gigantic archive where all versions of your life are recorded at the same time. The version where you are broke now, the version where you are prosperous now, the version where you made different decisions, the version where you accepted that offer, the version where you refused, all coexisting like different tracks playing simultaneously. Within this logic, the past never ceased to exist. The child you were at 7 years old still exists, vibrating at that frequency. The present is being recorded in this same field, and the future is not something that needs to be created from scratch, but accessed among already existing possibilities. This is the central inversion. You wake up believing you need to build your financial future piece by piece with constant effort, exhausting strategy, and obsessive planning. But if the complete puzzle already exists in another dimension of the information field, perhaps the question is not how to assemble it, but how to tune into it. If all futures already exist simultaneously, including the one in which you are prosperous, then the problem is not the absence of possibility, but misalignment of frequency. While you believe you need to build from zero, you disconnect from the abundant versions that already exist. You remain stuck on the timeline that reinforces scarcity because your focus stays there. The energy that could be used to tune in is wasted trying to manufacture something that is already available. The truth presented is direct. Your prosperous self already exists now, not in a distant future conditioned on extreme effort, but now, vibrating at a specific frequency in the information field. The question stops being creation and becomes tuning. Like a radio station that is already broadcasting, you simply adjust the dial. The frequency does not need to be created. It is already on the air. The paradox appears when you realize that the frantic search for abundance keeps you on the frequency of someone who does not have it. Searching presupposes separation. It presupposes that it is outside of you. If all versions coexist, including the abundant one, then wealth is not conquest. It is remembrance. It is not construction. It is access. Calm access recognizes that it was always available, But while you try to create, your mind is occupied with calculations, worries, and catastrophic predictions. You wake up at 3 in the morning thinking about bills. You check your bank balance repeatedly. You mentally simulate emergency scenarios. And society calls this responsibility. Obsessive planning is praised. Anxiety is mistaken for maturity. Worry is treated as prudence. Yet within the presented mechanism, every thought charged with emotion is an order to the quantum double. Intense emotions have a specific vibrational frequency. Fear, anxiety, and desperation are not just psychological states. They are energetic commands. When you obsessively think about debt, even if you say it's to solve it, your focus is on it. And focus is the direction of energy. The double does not interpret moral intention. It responds to the dominant focus. If you spend the entire day thinking about lack of money, the message sent is clear. This is the experience in evidence. The double, described as an efficient assistant, does not judge or question. It simply observes where your emotional attention is and expands that in reality, not out of cruelty, but out of vibrational obedience. This is the uncomfortable inversion. Worry is not protection, anxiety is not a solution. For the information field, both are focus. And directed focus creates the update of experience. There is no distinction between thinking because you want something and thinking because you fear it. There is only the energy invested. In practice, this translates into the constant updating of a scarcity scenario. The bill you feared arrives with interest. The unexpected expense materializes. The opportunity goes unnoticed because your frequency is calibrated to lack. It is impossible to tune into abundance while your attention is fixed on absence. Like two radio stations, they cannot be heard simultaneously. Society taught that constant alertness is a virtue, but here the assertion is that your worry is creating the problem you are trying to avoid. And by understanding this, the transition opens to the next point: control. You wake up wanting to know how the money will come, from where, by which strategy. You try to control every detail. Culture glorifies extreme effort, absolute control, permanent vigilance. But anxious control transmits a specific message. There is no trust in the solution. When you micromanage every possibility, you are communicating to the double that you do not believe a solution exists beyond your limited vision. And the double reflects that belief. The proposed difference is simple. In desperation, you try to pilot. In the exercise, you recognize the destination and surrender the steering. Your conscious perception sees only a minimal fraction of possibilities. Your double, operating in the field where all futures coexist, has access to the full panorama. Thus, surrender stops being irresponsibility and becomes strategy. It is not giving up action, it is giving up anxious control. The surrender ritual carries a paradox. You deliberately do something to access non-effort. You remove the stones that block the flow. You do not create water, you only clear the path. And then comes the spiritual validation of this mechanism. In Matthew 25:29, it is written, "For to everyone who has, more will be given, and he will have abundance. But from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away." The interpretation presented is vibrational. It does not speak of bank balances, but of internal state. Whoever vibrates at the frequency of one who already has receives more. Whoever vibrates at the frequency of lack reinforces lack, not as punishment, but as a reflex mechanism. The dominant vibration determines the corresponding experience. If you vibrate scarcity, reality responds with scarcity. If you vibrate trust and abundance, the response is different. And to avoid contamination by competition or disguised scarcity, the exercise includes 2 alignment phrases: "This" or "something even better," and "May there be peace for everyone involved." With this, the request is freed from limitation and aligned with the collective good. the double seeks the best possible solution within a field of real abundance. This is the foundation. The understanding that your vibration determines your financial reality, that the field only reflects, and that the double operates within the emitted frequency. From this base, the practical exercise is presented as a direct application of this mechanism. Now that the foundation has been established, the coexistence of multiple versions of you in the information field and the understanding that your vibration determines which timeline you update. It is necessary to deepen the mechanics of the double directly, without shallow mysticism and without unnecessary metaphors. The central point is not believing. The central point is executing correctly. You have been conditioned to act as if you were isolated, as if you were only this physical version limited by linear time. This version wakes up, works, calculates, worries, and tries to solve everything using only what it can perceive with the five senses. But according to the presented mechanism, this is only a fraction of you. There is another instance of you operating in the information field, outside the limitation of linear perception. This instance is called here the double. The double is not in the future. It is not in some distant mystical dimension. It operates simultaneously in the same instant, accessing all coexisting possibilities. If what I'm saying makes sense to you, and you feel ready to deepen this experience, I've left a more complete material in the pinned comment. You don't need to look at it now. Just remember it when the time feels right. While your conscious mind sees only the immediate scenario, bills, invoices, bank balance, the double has access to all possible combinations of events that can lead to a solution. But there is a recurring problem: interference. Your conscious mind interferes all the time. It interferes with fear, doubt, anxiety, and the need for control. It interferes by trying to decide how the solution must happen. It interferes by insisting that only one specific path exists. This interference creates noise in communication with the double. That is why the moment of sleep is chosen. During deep sleep, rational mind activity is drastically reduced. Interference diminishes. Mental noise weakens, and access to the field becomes more direct. The exercise with a glass of water is not a symbolic ornament. It creates a structured ritual that organizes your intention clearly. Water functions as a conductive element within the process, not as superstition, but as an anchoring medium for intention. When you hold the glass with both hands and announce the specific problem out loud, you are doing something essential, defining coordinates. The double does not work with vague requests. I want money is not a coordinate, it is noise. I need to pay a specific debt of a certain amount by a certain date is clear direction. Clarity is fundamental because it reduces vibrational ambiguity. The more diffuse the request, the more diffuse the response. When you name the problem precisely, you delimit the focus. Next, the two alignment phrases fulfill a strategic function. This, or something even better, prevents you from limiting the solution to your restricted imagination. Your conscious vision sees a minimal fraction of possibilities. If you demand a specific solution, you may be ignoring alternatives that are far more coherent and beneficial. By opening space for something better, you allow the double to choose from the full spectrum. May there be peace for everyone involved removes contamination of scarcity. If your request is charged with competition, envy, or the idea that someone must lose for you to win, you are vibrating lack. This phrase aligns the request with real abundance, where gain does not require subtraction from others. After that, you drink half the water. This act is intentional, not mechanical. You visualize the problem being transferred, absorbed, communicated. The physical action anchors the energetic decision. You are not merely thinking, you are executing a protocol. When you sleep, the remaining half of the water stays as a marker of continuity. During sleep, according to the presented mechanics, the double accesses the information field where all solutions already coexist and identifies the timeline in which your problem is resolved in the most coherent way. Execution does not end when you wake up. Upon waking, before external distractions, you drink the other half of the water. This moment is critical because your mind is still between states. You visualize the solution arriving, not as anxious fantasy, but as integration of a response that has already been located. From that moment on, your role changes. You do not force the solution. You do not micromanage the path. Your function is observation. You observe unexpected ideas, casual encounters, opportunities that arise outside the mental script you had imagined. The solution rarely comes through the path your anxious mind planned. It may come through an unlikely conversation, an unexpected proposal, or a sudden insight. If you are fixated on a specific format, you may ignore what the double has delivered. That is why mental vigilance during the 3 days is part of the protocol. Anxiety will arise because it is habitual. When it does, you do not feed it. You remember that the task has already been delivered, that the double is operating in the field where all futures coexist. Worry does not help at this stage. It interferes. The repetition over 3 consecutive nights is deliberate. Repetition recalibrates frequency. The first night establishes direction. The second reinforces alignment. The third consolidates tuning. If you interrupt the sequence, you break the calibration and revert to the previous pattern. This process does not require blind faith. It requires disciplined execution. Belief is not demanded in advance. Application and observation are. When the solution appears, acknowledge it. Do not minimize it. Do not dismiss it as coincidence. Recognition reinforces communication. Gratitude is not a moral gesture. It is confirmation that the mechanism was understood. From there, the exercise can continue beyond a single situation. The purpose is not merely resolving one debt, but stabilizing your frequency in abundance by reducing interference and strengthening operational trust in the double. This is not passivity. It is not waiting for a miracle. It is acting when doors open while stopping the habit of forcing the wrong ones. You announce the destination. The double finds the path. You recognize the signal and act. This is the complete structure of the mechanism. There is, however, a sensitive distinction that must be understood with precision. The difference between executing the protocol and continuing to vibrate distrust. Many perform the external steps while internally maintaining anxiety. This incoherence blocks the timeline update. If you announce the problem and then spend the night trying to calculate how it must be solved, you have resumed anxious control. If you wake up compulsively checking reality, forcing signs, or chasing confirmation, you are signaling distrust. The mechanics are simple, but they require vibrational maturity. You state the destination. You surrender the steering. You stop interfering. This is not inertia, laziness, or negligence. You live normally. You work. You decide. But you do not live in tension, waiting for proof. Tension itself is a message. And the message of tension is that it is not working. If you vibrate that it is not working, the field reflects that. Coherence is decisive. When you execute the exercise at night and monitor your thoughts during the day, you keep the frequency clean. When anxiety arises, you interrupt it consciously. You breathe. You remember that it has already been delivered. This remembering is not a phrase. It is an internal repositioning, a re-anchoring of trust. The double operates in a field beyond impatience. It does not respond to urgency or emotional pressure. It responds to clarity and stability. The solution may require your movement, but it will not appear as desperation. It will come as a calm impulse, a natural idea, an invitation that fits without force. Excessive worry can blind you to the path that is already opening. That is why synchronicities are observed. Synchronicity is not spectacle. It is meaningful coincidence, something ordinary that carries alignment. Information that arrives without pursuit. Conversations that fit precisely. Opportunities that emerge through unexpected channels. These are markers of timeline updating, but they are only noticed when anxiety is not dominating perception. The exercise is not performed casually. It is 3 complete nights, not adapted, not interrupted. Repetition creates alignment because the old pattern of scarcity was built through years of worry. It dissolves through consistency, not improvisation. The request must also be free of emotional contamination. Anger, envy, or the need to prove something vibrates scarcity. The double responds to dominant frequency, not declared intention. That is why the alignment phrases are essential. This, or something even better, expands the field. May there be peace for everyone involved, cleans the vibration. You are not competing for limited resources. You are accessing abundance. And here lies a deeper structural point. Full belief is not required, but consistency is. Discipline replaces faith. You test, observe, and gather evidence through experience. When results appear, you acknowledge them. Recognition strengthens tuning. Over time, anxiety weakens. The impulse to control diminishes, and operational trust grows. This trust is not belief. It is accumulated proof. You execute, surrender, observe, and act when necessary. Without theatricality, without exaggerated mysticism, without empty promises. The mechanics are simple. Focus is in order. Emotion amplifies. Surrender reduces interference. Repetition calibrates frequency. Observation recognizes synchronicity. If this is understood deeply, the change extends beyond a single financial issue. It transforms how you interact with the field of possibilities. And when interaction changes, reality updates. The final precision is this. The exercise does not function as a plea. It functions as instruction. Executed as desperation, it vibrates scarcity. Executed as structured communication, it vibrates alignment. The difference is subtle, but it determines the outcome. When someone begs, fear is embedded in the act. There is a sense of imminent lack, desperation, urgency, and desperation is the frequency of scarcity. But when you announce a specific problem to the double with clarity, objectivity, and alignment, you are not begging. You are declaring coordinates within the field. This distinction changes everything. The double does not respond to dramatic intensity. It responds to vibrational sharpness. When the ritual becomes emotionally chaotic, the signal is contaminated. That is why the instruction is deliberately simple, direct, almost technical. Sit down, spine upright, glass in your hands, declare, align, drink half, sleep. No exaggeration, no theatricality. Another essential point is that the exercise does not replace concrete action when action becomes evident. A common mistake is to confuse surrender with passivity. That is not what is being proposed. Surrender is the release of anxious control, not the abandonment of inspired action. When an idea arises clearly, you execute. When a conversation opens naturally, you participate. When an opportunity appears, you act. What you stop doing is forcing closed doors out of fear. The double operates in the field where all futures coexist and identifies the timeline in which the solution is viable, harmonious, and aligned. But for that timeline to become your lived experience, you must be available to act when the point of intersection appears. This is a partnership. You are not excluded from the process. You are part of it. The difference is that you stop trying to calculate everything with limited perception. Across the 3 nights, an internal adjustment begins to occur. Your emotional relationship with the problem shifts. What once felt dense and oppressive starts to lose weight, not necessarily because the situation has already resolved externally, but because you are no longer vibrating constant panic. This internal relaxation is not incidental. It is a signal that frequency is recalibrating. When frequency changes, perception changes. You begin to notice opportunities you previously overlooked. People who once seemed irrelevant become meaningful connections. Ideas that once felt impossible begin to feel executable. None of this is fantasy or magic. It is the natural consequence of a shift in dominant focus. Recall the core principle that has been presented. Focus is a search order, emotion is an amplifier, Surrender reduces noise. Repetition stabilizes tuning. This brings us to a detail that many neglect. During the 3 days, you cannot mentally feed scenarios that contradict what you declared. If at night you state that the double is resolving the situation and during the day you spend hours imagining failure, you create direct interference. It is like tuning a radio station and then repeatedly turning the dial away. Mental discipline during these days is part of the protocol. This does not mean repressing thoughts by force. It means recognizing when you enter a spiral of worry and consciously interrupting it. You observe, breathe, and remember. It has already been delivered. That remembering is not a slogan. It is an act of recalibration. Do not seek immediate proof by compulsively checking reality every hour. Impatience is a form of distrust, and distrust vibrates the message that it has not happened yet. The field responds to dominant frequency, not urgency. When you truly understand that all versions already coexist, you see that the solution does not need to be created, only updated. That update occurs when your frequency becomes compatible with the timeline where the solution exists. Compatibility is the key. If the prosperous version of you vibrates trust, clarity, and the absence of panic, remaining in chronic anxiety prevents synchronization. The exercise exists precisely to reduce that vibrational distance. Over the 3 nights, you begin to internalize that you are not alone trying to solve everything with restricted vision. This shift in posture alone alters your dominant vibration. And when the solution appears, whether as an idea, an opportunity, or an unexpected resource, do not hesitate out of old fear. Excessive hesitation is often a return to the scarcity pattern. Aligned action is part of materialization. There is also responsibility involved. The exercise cannot be used as an excuse to continue destructive financial habits. The double operates within coherent fields of possibility. If you request a solution while repeating the same behaviors that generated the problem, you keep the old timeline active. Surrender does not replace maturity. That is why the anchoring phrase, "the double has already resolved it," is not symbolic commentary. It is an internal commitment, a decision to stop sabotaging the process through distrust. The complete protocol is simple and precise. Clarity in the request, alignment through the phrases, half the water before sleep, half after waking, 3 consecutive nights, mental vigilance during the day, observation of synchronicities, action when the door opens, recognition when the solution arrives. Nothing more, nothing less. If executed coherently, the mechanics move. Everything converges to one non-negotiable point: execution. Not creative interpretation, not personal adaptation, not mixing techniques. Faithful execution. What was presented is not an abstract philosophy to debate. It is a structured protocol to apply. You began by understanding that linear time is a limited construct, that past, present, and future coexist in an information field where all versions of you are already present. You understood that your prosperous self does not need to be created, only accessed. You saw that constant worry is not prudence, but vibrational focus on scarcity. You recognize that every intense emotion is an order to the double, and that anxious control communicates distrust. Now only one thing remains: align behavior with understanding. Knowledge without execution keeps you on the same timeline. The exercise was not offered as a symbolic suggestion, but as a precise sequence. Glass of water, specific spoken declaration, 2 alignment phrases, half the water before sleep, half upon waking, 3 consecutive nights. Mental vigilance during the day, observation of synchronicities, action when the door opens. Nothing more, nothing less. Do not execute expecting spectacle. The field does not exist to impress the ego. It reorganizes probabilities naturally. Sometimes the solution will feel simple. Sometimes it will appear as an ordinary coincidence. Sometimes it will come through a path so logical that you are tempted to dismiss the process. naturalness does not invalidate alignment. If an idea resolves most of the problem, do not reject it for lacking drama. If a casual conversation opens an opportunity, do not minimize it. If the solution unfolds gradually, do not dismiss it for not being instantaneous. The double operates within the real possibilities available in your context, your network, your moment. It does not need to violate physical laws. It requires coherence. During the 3 days, doubts will arise, old habits will surface. The impulse to check balances, to calculate worst-case scenarios, to return to fear will appear. Each time, you choose, feed it or interrupt it. Interrupting reinforces trust. Feeding it reactivates scarcity. The difference between remaining on the same timeline and accessing another lies in these micro-decisions. When you understand that focus is an order, emotion amplifies, and surrender reduces interference, you stop treating your mind as uncontrolled territory. You assume vibrational responsibility. This is not guilt, it is power. If your vibration sustained scarcity, it can also update to abundance. The field does not judge. It responds. The double has already resolved it. It is not naive affirmation. It is positioning. It is the decision to stop insisting on the narrative that you are alone, struggling with limited vision. You deliver to the double what it does best, navigating the full field of possibilities, and you assume what is yours, acting when the path is revealed. Execute for 3 consecutive nights with clarity and mental discipline, and something shifts. Perhaps first internally, then externally. Perhaps first in perception, then as opportunity. But the change begins the moment you stop vibrating desperation and start vibrating alignment. This is not blind faith. It is practical application. You do not need to convince anyone. You do not need to announce results. You only need to execute. So go, take the glass, sit down, declare, align. Drink half, sleep, wake up, drink the rest, observe, repeat for 3 nights. Watch your thoughts. Act when the door opens. No drama, no rush, no adaptation, just execution. And write as a commitment to yourself. The double has already resolved it. If this message truly resonated with you, if you felt that quiet inner shift, that sense that your mind is ready for something greater, I left a resource in the pinned comment that goes deeper into this process. I only recommend it for those who feel genuinely ready to accelerate their results, but follow it in your own time. If it calls to you, you'll find it there. If you're here for execution, there's something you need to see first. This protocol only works because of a prior shift. The move from identifying as matter to recognizing yourself as conscious energy. That shift explains why control interferes, why worry creates noise, and why reality reorganizes when the position of the observer changes. All of that foundation is in the previous video, where Bashar explains how identity determines which version of reality becomes active. Without that understanding, this becomes technique. With it, this becomes calibration. The previous video is on your screen now.